Hi, in this video I will teach you how to make homemade banana bread. For my English language learner audience, I also put metric system equivalents so you can see the recipe here below. You can see the grams and everything there. So I will talk about that. It's also in the description below this video. We'll have the conversions for you. Okay, so banana bread is really delicious. I love it. I will be reading this instruction to you. This is from Food Network. You can download this, which I will also provide a link at the bottom of this video. Let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is turn your oven on to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, which with the conversion is 160 degrees Celsius. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we just turned on the oven. Now it says to butter a 9 by 5 by 3 inch loaf pan, which is this guy right here. And these are the ingredients you're going to need. You're going to need the pan, baking soda, baking powder, salt, milk, softened butter, 2 large eggs, which if I pick them up, I'll probably drop them, and then 3 ripe bananas, cinnamon, flour, and this is granulated sugar. That's a fun English word. Try to say that. Granulated sugar. Granulated. We don't really talk like that in American English. We just say sugar. So there you go. Okay, let's get started to the next thing. So what we need to do is butter this bad boy here. What I like to do is I actually have some tools that I use, which is like a brush like this. So as you can see, I'm using a brush, butter, to do this. Some people use cooking spray, and I also have a link below in the video if you want to use cooking spray. So there we go. I buttered the pan. That's called buttering the pan. I'm just going to read their instructions here. It says, cream the sugar and butter in a large mixing bowl until light and fluffy. Add the eggs one at a time, beating well after each addition. So we're going to go do that right now with the KitchenAid. All right, so I've softened the butter, as you can see here, and I'm going to put that in the KitchenAid mixer. By the way, you might need a KitchenAid mixer to do this if you're lazy and you don't want to use your hand, but it's also efficient. So if you don't have a KitchenAid, you can get one. Click the link below this video. You can get a KitchenAid, or if you want to shop local, there's a local business here. If you're watching this and you're in Fort Collins, Colorado, there's a shop called The Cupboard downtown. You can just go in there and buy a KitchenAid for yourself that way. Okay, so let's do this first step. Butter in here. And that beep you just heard was for the oven being ready. So we're going to put the softened butter in here. Okay, so this is 1 cup of granulated sugar, which is what we need, and that's 140 grams. So I'll just scoop this in here like so. You can get the sugar. I'll put a little more in here this way to get the full cup. And so if you're in another country, the metrics would be about 140 grams or so, and here in the US it's 1 cup. So this is the one for the 1 cup. All right, now we put it in here. And now, with the KitchenAid, I use this cool paddle thing here, this kind of paddle, to help mix it and cream it. And it said to cream it until it's light and fluffy. So with the KitchenAid, you can lock it and then turn here. You can see, you can turn the switch. Here we go, we're gonna cream this bad boy. Woohoo, creamy! Creamy, creamy, creamy! So you just cream that. And it's important to have the butter mostly softened so it gives it this cream effect. It's like whipping the sugar and butter together. And then I like to use a spatula to kind of poke it down in here a little bit more. And we have that step done. That was step 1. Okay, so let's look at the next step we have on the list, which is add the eggs one at a time, beating well after each addition. So now we're going to add the eggs. One at a time. And I like to get it started before I drop the egg in there. But you can crack both really and throw them in here. But you also don't want to get any eggshell in there. It's very important you don't get the eggshell in there. Otherwise you'll have a really crunchy bite of banana bread. That's a fun English word, crunchy. So be careful not to get eggshell in there. And beating it one at a time, and then I crank it up a little bit, which is a phrasal verb. Crank up means to increase in speed or amount. So I'm cranking up the KitchenAid. If you want to say that word, repeat after me. Crank up the KitchenAid. Got it? Crank up. Awesome. Okay. All right, so now I whip this for the banana bread. And now we're gonna look at the next step, which is in a small bowl, mash the bananas with a fork, mix in the milk and cinnamon, and then in another bowl, we're gonna mix the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. So I'm gonna show you both of those in step 3 here. Let's go. So now we have our fork, and we're gonna mix that in here, mash up these ripe bananas. So I'm just gonna open them and peel them off and throw them in here. And we will mash them up. So I like to just mash them up like so. All right. So now I've mashed up the banana here into a softened mixture a little bit more. All right, so our next step is we need our milk. So we're gonna mix in the milk and cinnamon, and the milk is 1 tablespoon here. So just do the 1 tablespoon. You can see here, 1 tablespoon of milk. And then we also have 1 teaspoon cinnamon that I'm gonna put in here. All right, so now I've got 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And now we just mix these together. All right, so the dry ingredients are gonna be the baking soda, the baking powder, and the flour. And I'm gonna use 2 cups of flour it calls for. All-purpose flour, it's important you know that one too, that it's all-purpose flour. And a little trick we like to do is take this butter knife to get it even and just slide it right off, and it makes it nice and even. So that's 1 cup. Now, I got 2 cups here. So now I have 2 cups of flour. And now we're gonna add a teaspoon. This is a teaspoon. Also, if you don't have any of these measuring utensils for the US standard measurements, like tablespoon or teaspoon, I also put a link below. You can get some of these there and order them online. All right, so here's the teaspoon of baking powder. And then I'll do a teaspoon of baking soda. And then I just like to use a spoon. Also, we need a teaspoon of salt too. I forgot to tell you about the salt, but we do need a teaspoon of salt. And if I go over on this a little bit, that's all right. And then I just dump the salt in here. And what I like to do is I just use this little spoon to kind of stir it up a little bit, just to get it mixed in with the flour. Also, those are some fast phrasal verbs I just used. Stir up, mix in. So let's say those together. Stir up, mix in. I'm stirring up the flour. I'm mixing in the salt and baking soda. Mixing in, stirring up. Okay. Also, I will provide a list of cooking phrasal verbs below this video too, so you can continue to practice your English. All right, so now we have our mixture, our banana mixture, and our flour. And now the next step says to add the banana mixture to the cream mixture and stir until combined. So let's do that first. So I'm going to add the banana mixture here to the creamed butter and sugar and eggs. And another phrasal verb here is like pour in. I'm pouring in or mixing in the ingredients. And so now I'm going to cheat and use the KitchenAid to do that for me. Now that next step that it said on here was to add the dry ingredients, mixing just until the flour disappears. So while it's spinning, I like to add the dry ingredients just until that flour disappears. Although I turn that up a little higher. So I'll mix this in like this until it comes in here all the way. And then I use my spatula again to try to kind of push down the edges. And we just let it mix for a minute here. Okay, and you don't want to mix it too long, so you want to stop here. And then I like to mix it a little bit more by hand, just to make sure that we got it all. Also, you can lick this off if you want, and then put it back in there. Just kidding. That's a phrasal verb, though. But we would say lick off is a phrasal verb where you take your tongue and lick this. But I'm not going to do that for you. But let's say that together. Lick off. I licked off the batter. Also in English, this word here for this stuff, this yummy banana bread dough that we have, we call this batter. Batter, and that's with 2 T's, not batter, which would be British English. We actually say batter in American English with 2 D's. But it's spelled with 2 T's, so why don't I say the T's? Well, because I'm American, and Americans like to make our T sounds like bottle, water, D's. So this is called batter. Can you say batter? Batter. So now we have the banana bread batter. And like I said, I like to mix it up just a little bit more myself. It's going to come out nice and great. Okay, let's look at our next step. Where does the batter go? Well, the next step says to pour the batter into a prepared pan and bake 1 hour to 1 hour 10 minutes. I'm going to just do 1 hour and then check it until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. Hey, there's another phrasal verb, comes out. This means basically I put a toothpick in the middle of the bread, pull it out, and if it's dry, it's good to go. And I'll show you that later once we bake it. We're going to set aside to cool after we're done for 15 minutes, remove, invert onto rack, and cool before slicing. But our next step is to pour the batter into the pan, so let's do that. Okay, so here we are pouring the batter into the pan, the banana bread batter, which is so yummy. And I have kids, so you know you'll hear them in the background. Dad life. Okay. Awesome. So now we have the yummy, delicious banana bread batter, and I like to do this. When I put the banana bread in here, I like to make this kind of smooth. I like to kind of spoon it out so it gives it a nice top look. Just kind of do something like that. You can even do it how you want, but since this is buttered, we're good to go. All right, so now we have this delicious batter, and we're going to put it in the oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Here we go. So I open the oven, and we put it on the center rack. You want to put it on the center rack. So that's called the center rack. Put in the oven, and later, the other phrasal verb, we will take it out. Right now, though, I'm going to set a timer for 1 hour, which is 60 minutes. All right? I'll see you in an hour. All right, so now the banana bread timer just went off, so we're going to look at the banana bread now. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that. Nice. So you put a toothpick in. If it comes out clean, that means it's ready. Yep, came out clean, so that means it is ready to go. First, what we have to do is we have to let it cool. So in order to do that, we need to put it on a cooling rack. The other thing I like to do is I like to put a towel over it while it cools, so that way it will be ready to go here in a little bit. So here in about 5 minutes, what I'll do is I'll just tip the pan over. Maybe I might even wait 10 to 15 minutes, but I'll turn it over and then get it out, and then I'll be able to enjoy eating it. So that's how you make homemade banana bread. And if you want this recipe, again, click the link below. If this video was helpful for you, subscribe and share, and I'll see you in a future lesson.